It's a matter of just protecting themselves, like they have to be strong for you. But for me, I needed my husband to cry. I'm like, I need somebody else to be brokenhearted over this. And so when he finally had a meltdown, I was like, yay. And I know that sounds terrible, but I'm like, I'm not the only one that lost a baby, and so it was just comforting for me to see him cry too. Like, I just need to know that I'm not the only one that's heartbroken. But just asking how the dad is doing and if he has someone that he can talk to, or if you've been there and your husband's willing to talk, letting them know that there's other dads that have been heartbroken too. It makes way more of a difference than I ever realized. It's important to ask them what you would like them to call their baby. I have asked people, like, did you choose to name your baby? And I didn't realize that that could be abrasive because sometimes people feel guilty like they didn't name their baby. But I wanted to name my baby because I named all my other babies. And for my husband, he was apprehensive because it made it final. Like, this was a real baby. And so he was on the fence about it. I'm like, well, I'm going to call her whatever I want if you're not going to help, because I'm naming her. But then it was just, he admitted that it made it final to him, that it acknowledged that it was a life that was lost. But anyway, so some women prefer to just refer to them as a baby, and some like to name them. And I think it's better just to ask them, what would you like? Because you don't want them to feel guilty or ashamed that they decided not to name them for whatever reason. It's important to ask them if there's appointments that would be good for you to go with. Like, I had a lot of appointments afterwards because they're waiting to see if you physically delivered, and then I had surgery and all this other stuff. And it was really hard to go to some of those places alone, like just to bring yourself to go back into the room where they told you your baby's heart stopped. It's hard, especially when you're by yourself. And so, maybe they want to go along, but just knowing that there's the option to not have to is great. And also, if she says, yeah, I would really like your company, I offer to drive, because my mind was all over the place, having to work yourself up to even go back into the building where they told you your baby was dead. Like, trying to drive and do all while you're like lost in your own head is probably not very safe. So if you offer to drive, it gives her the option to just kind of be in her thoughts and not have to worry about not ruining somebody. Asking if there's errands you can run, like my friend offering to go to the pharmacy for me, that was huge. Like, that was the one thing I couldn't do it. I know I had to, but it was really hard. And so just saying, can I run an errand for you? Or like checking the mail so that way they don't have to get those formula samples and stuff like that for a while. Or even some of the bills that come after, like, here's the bill for your DMC. Well, that was hard to open. Just some of those things. Like, can I help you open the mail so that you don't have to look at those things? Asking if you'd like them to go with you to a support group or to see a counselor. The Forget Me Not ministry is very small, and we haven't met really in a while because a lot of the women that were in the group have come to a place where they're comfortable, they're in a good place, and so the need hasn't been as urgent. But sometimes we've met at coffee shops in like a private room. Sometimes we meet at my house and we send all the kids downstairs, or we go downstairs and let them run amok upstairs. But it's always a private place to talk. We don't ever share what's being discussed. It's like usually me and Ashley and a couple other women. We don't even discuss who's been there, just because some women don't want everyone to know that they've miscarried for whatever reason. And so, if you feel like, even if your miscarriage has been 20 years ago, and you just feel like, I just need to get it out with somebody, you're welcome. And I'm okay with a friend coming, not maybe every time, but initially, because it's like, okay, I'm going through this emotional thing, and I know I'm going to cry, and it's people I don't know, and it's just intimidating. Like, what am I going to expect while we're there? And so just having a friend to come with you and say, I'll go with you, like, I'll cry with you, whatever it may be, just kind of makes people to go to that first place and like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Asking if there's important dates that you can remember. Hard dates would be like the date of loss, the date you found out you were pregnant, due dates, and just different things along the way. Some people choose to remember those things. You're going to remember them anyway. I didn't want to know the dates, and then I had to for medical reasons. Like, well, how long have you been bleeding? Well, let me figure it out. So, like, I have a date when I started bleeding, a date when I think the baby was delivered, all those things like that. We let off, like, a sky lantern, even though it's illegal. I didn't realize it, but I'm like, well, too bad. I have to break the law sometimes. In honor of our baby the first year when she was born. Offer to help her go through her Facebook or do it for her. I know that sounds terrible, and don't unfriend anyone, but you can hide people's posts without them knowing. Like, you can go and just unfollow it for a while so you don't have to see the ultrasound pictures and the baby shower posts, and nobody has to know about that but you. But sometimes those things are really hard to look at every day, or sometimes you feel like you log in and they're like, oh, 25 people are pregnant today except for me. And so you can help her, filter her Facebook for a little while if she wants to do that. And then when she's ready, like, okay, I'm in a good place, so I feel like I want to see what everybody's doing, then they can go back and look at those things. That's one of the hard things too, is that it feels guilty to feel jealous. You feel guilty for like, how could I have these ugly thoughts when I don't want this other person to lose their baby, but then at the same time, you don't really want to hear about it either. And some things to avoid saying, like, you can always try again. For one, you don't know that. Like, maybe it was an IVF, or maybe, with a tubal pregnancy, sometimes you lose your ability to have children. And so saying, maybe you can try again, maybe they can't. But even if they can, they wanted this baby. Like, they don't want any other baby. They wanted that one. And so whether they try again or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't undo what just happened. Saying at least you have other children, or anything that says at least, like at least you weren't blah, blah, blah. No, at least nothing. Having other children, sometimes it's harder after that, because then, like for me, I had anxiety about what if one of these kids dies too, I have never been more grateful for my other children than after I lost one. You realize how fragile life really is. One of the things I would recommend saying instead is like, how are your other kids doing? When I lost Ruby, it was really hard for me to be vulnerable in front of our children, because I didn't want them to see me falling apart. But it was gonna make me cry. I wanted Faith to be real to them. Like, when you are so brokenhearted you can't stand up straight, I want them to see me kneeling on the floor before my bed and just crying out to the Lord, because you can say anything, you can bring your kids to church, you can teach them Bible verses, but when faith is lived out in real life, that's when faith is real to them. They grieved with us. They saw me and their dad at the altar crying and asking God for another baby. All those things were real to them, and it wasn't a show like, this is what you're supposed to do when you're sad. It was genuine. And our youngest daughter, she turned 4 right after, and so 4-year-olds are just more, and they say what they're thinking. But she would just say, I miss Ruby sometimes. And still now, she's 7, and she said, I miss Ruby. And our older daughter did not like to talk about it. Like, she still gets uncomfortable about it. But one day she came home from school last year, and she was saying, Mom, they were talking about another teacher who lost their baby, and how God worked things in that situation. And she said, Mom, when Ruby died, I saw God grow your faith. And I can't think of a better thing that they would see out of such heartache, but to see my faith be real. I know that God grew my faith because of the way that I had to rely on Him so much. I didn't realize I was such a control freak until I was like, well, I need to be pregnant by this day because then I'll have a baby by this day. And then all those dates passed, and God said, no, I'm in control. And then I remember one night praying, okay, Lord, whatever you decide, I give it to you. And then I found out I was pregnant. I'm like, seriously? Heating season? Like, I worked for a plumbing and heating company, and I always do like the worst time of the year. But it worked out really well, because then I got to be off for a couple weeks when it was super busy. But it was when I genuinely surrendered that to the Lord. He said, okay, you can have a baby. Don't say God needed another angel. I've seen a phrase, and it sounds kind of crass, but it's easy for you to say that God needed another angel when He didn't ask you for yours. But babies are not angels. Humans are humans, and angels are angels, and they're not the same. Your baby's not going to be an angel when it dies. Like, I know some people think it's comforting to think of your babies in heaven, and they are, but they're not angels. Angels are immortal beings, and humans are humans. But like I said, God needed another angel. Like, how hard to think that, okay, God took my baby away to make it go to work. Like, I got stuff to do around the house, okay? God won't give you anything you can handle. That contradicts scripture as well. And actually, let me pull up the verse. Pastor Darrell was talking about it the other day. Saying that God won't give us anything that we can handle puts us in God's place. Like, if we were meant to do difficult things on our own, we would have no real need for God. It's 2 Corinthians 12:9. Let me pull it up really quick. Sorry about my sniffles. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in need, in persecutions, in distress, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. When we're in those moments of weakness, that's when God is carrying us. And sometimes it makes people feel bad. They're like, God won't give you anything you can handle. Like, I cannot handle this. So now you're making me feel like I should be able to, and I can't. God says he'll never leave us or forsake us, but he didn't say he wasn't gonna not give us difficult things because we could tough it out. And then lastly, I would say don't say at least you weren't that far along or compare one loss to another. Like, my husband never realized how much it hurt me that he would say, well, at least you didn't have to deliver a baby. I'm like, well, I did. You just weren't in there. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, it's after all. You know, each person's story is unique and equally painful. You know, whether a mom delivers, you know, a baby that's full term, or a mom, you know, has found out she's pregnant and then goes in for an ultrasound and they said, sorry, there's nothing in there. Like, it's all hurts just the same. It's somebody that she loved and lost. And, you know, society refers to it as pregnancy loss, which is a medical condition, but that's because when they dehumanize a baby, then when they're aborting them, it's okay because it wasn't alive. Like, my baby had a heart that stopped. She was very much alive. I saw her heart beating a couple times, and then I saw the time that it wasn't. That baby was alive, and you can't go back on that. So I try and shy away from the term pregnancy loss because it's like a hangnail. No, this was a baby that died. And it may sound harsh because people don't like to talk about death, but like, if we can bring more value to life and let people realize like these babies are alive and their lives do matter, then maybe people wouldn't so carelessly have abortions. And I learned in my own, you learn to give a lot of grace when you go through things, because people try, they don't know what to say or what to do, and then in their attempts to say something, they put their foot in their mouth. But I learned through all of this, like, some of my family members have not acknowledged my loss, but because they have aborted babies along the way, and so if they acknowledge that my baby was alive, then they have to acknowledge that theirs was too, and they can't live with that guilt. So that's about all I got to share. I don't know if any of you have lost a baby, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or anything like that, but if you have and you're considering having more, that can be difficult too, and that was really hard. I would beat myself up over that, like, how can I be so frustrated about being so tired when all I wanted was this baby, you know, and how can I be sad about missing Ruby when I have Coral, and like, why can't I just be grateful? Well, they're two separate people. I love my two older children differently, and I would be sad if something happened to one of them or the other. And so it's okay to give yourself permission to grieve the life that's been lost and be grateful for the lives that you have. And it's okay to have hope too. Like, people say, don't get your hopes up. Like, if you don't have hope, what do you have? It's okay to be hopeful that things will get better, or that you'll have more children, and whatever that is may be. Like, if you lose your hope, you don't have anything. And so I just pray that if you have lost babies, that you'll be able to find comfort in knowing that you're not alone, and you don't have to be quiet about it, and it's not your fault, and it doesn't have to be a secret. And if you haven't lost babies, chances are really good that you'll know somebody that has. And that was another reason I wanted our daughters to know what we went through, because now we have 3 girls, but, you know, hopefully they'll have their own children, and should they ever go through it, I want them to know that I understand their pain. But if they have girlfriends, or, you know, maybe sister-in-laws, or somebody in their life may lose a baby along the way, that they'll know, they'll have some empathy towards that situation and say, you know, I don't know what that's like, but my mom was there, and, you know, maybe she would be willing to talk to you, or anything like that. And, you know, if you know somebody in your life that's lost a baby, just acknowledge their pain. You don't have to like make it some big drawn out thing, but just that I care about you, and I'm sorry that this hurts you. And even for me, I felt guilty for, like, my sister-in-law lost a couple babies, and I didn't realize it was a big deal. As hard as it sounds, like, I just didn't know. I didn't understand her heartache until it happened to me, and then I felt bad that I wasn't there for her more. And I even apologized to her, like, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you more. I just didn't understand. And another person in my life had lost a baby, and she didn't even know she was pregnant until she was miscarrying. So she didn't even, like, oh, you're pregnant and you're losing your baby all at the same time. And I didn't really even talk to her about it because I didn't know what to say, but it feels so isolating because you're like, people are avoiding me, or they look at you different, or I don't know, it's just weird. And then the last thing I would say is, if there's a woman in your life that's lost a baby, help her find something that brings her joy too. Like, it feels good to laugh when you're sad, and it feels good to still enjoy life and still have people want to spend time with you. And ask her, what's something that makes you laugh? What's something you enjoy? What's something that gives you hope? For me, it was little things like, hey, I made it to the grocery store by myself today, and I didn't cry going into Fred Meyer's. Like, oh, hey, I put on makeup today. Just little victories and small things. And sometimes you just need someone to love you when you're in the dark, but they also need help seeing the joy. And so we all have the ability to do that for somebody. So that's all I got, I think.